A teenager who apparently had her cell phone taken away as a punishment allegedly killed her grandmother just hours later. Now, she could face charges as an adult. We're digging into this disturbing case with retired Judge Elizabeth Scherer. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is a Law&Crime legal alert. Google Incognito tracked users' browsing data without their knowledge. Yep, well, Mass Tort Alliance, one of our legal sponsors, is actually helping users file for compensation due to Google users' privacy issues surrounding Google Incognito. So if you've used Google Incognito anytime since 2016, you can start your claim in less than 10 questions at incognitoclaims.com/sidebar. A Florida man recently made a gruesome discovery inside of his Lauderdale Lakes home. This is just outside of Miami. And this was when he found his 79-year-old mother dead. And guess what? His 14-year-old daughter could be her killer. 14-year-old Sofia Koval was charged with second-degree murder and is being held in secure detention in Broward County. Her father called 911 around midnight. He had gone to see a friend and left his teen daughter at home with her grandmother, his mother, Yevheniia Koval. When he returned, his mother had multiple bruises all over her body, and she was rushed to a hospital, but sadly died from her injuries. Now, an autopsy ruled that the elderly woman's death was a homicide, although no official cause of death has been released, so we don't know exactly how this woman was killed. We did, however, obtain the affidavit for order to take into custody, which was filed with the 17th Judicial Circuit Juvenile Division, and it lays out some of the events of that night, but it's also heavily redacted for privacy. But let's go through it a little bit. So the probable cause statement says, quote, contact was made with the 911 caller, whose name is redacted here, who advised he found the victim, his 80-year-old mother, Yevheniia Koval, unresponsive, lying on the floor of their apartment. Now, something to note here, this document says that the victim was 80, but reporting says that she is actually 79, so we need a little bit of clarification on there. But moving on, investigators interviewed the man about what happened, and it says that the 911 caller advised that him, the victim, and his 14-year-old daughter, Sofia Koval, who recently moved from Ukraine. He advised that his daughter had been giving him behavioral issues, which he believed are from the war that she witnessed in Ukraine and her being separated from her mother. So as a result, he took her cell phone from her today in an effort to discipline her. Well, according to her father, the defendant moved to the United States from Ukraine 8 months ago, and during her first court appearance last week, there was discussion of her immigration status, with Judge Elijah Williams pointing out that if she's not a citizen of the United States, then perhaps the Ukrainian consulate will likely need to get involved. The father told officers that he left his daughter at home with her grandmother while he went to visit a friend. Hours later, he would come home to find his mother lying on the floor. The probable cause affidavit says he, quote, advised that the victim had bruising all over her body, which was not on her body prior to him leaving. He asked his daughter, Sofia Koval, what happened, and she responded that the victim had scratched her. As a result, she had to defend herself. Now, according to this affidavit, Sofia confessed to her father, but that portion of the filing is heavily redacted, so we don't know exactly what she said. The deputy also says that she also made some sort of confession while riding in the patrol car to the Broward County Sheriff's Office, which was caught on body cam, but again, we don't have access to that. During that ride, it says, quote, Sofia also struck the partition in the vehicle with her hand and caused a laceration. Photographs were taken of Sofia Koval, and no injuries were observed to her other than the self-inflicted injury to her hand. So now that makes me wonder if that casts self-defense in a different light. Now, the document goes on to say that while at the public safety building, Sofia Koval was asked to exit the vehicle so that your affiant could speak with her about the incident, and she refused. Your affiant spoke with the 911 caller, and he agreed to speak with Sofia in regards to her coming into the office to speak with your affiant. The 911 caller spoke with Sofia, who again refused to leave the vehicle and asked about the victim and was informed that the victim was deceased. The document notes that at times Sofia and her father were speaking in Ukrainian. And the affidavit concludes by saying the victim's manner of death was a homicide. But again, the exact cause of death was not released. The document only says, based upon this investigation, it was determined that Sofia Koval physically struck the victim multiple times. Now, one neighbor told WSVN, a local outlet, that Sofia is a good girl. It's just something I can't see her doing. Another said it's terrifying, to be honest, like you would never suspect something like that, especially from a family member. Well, I had a chance to speak with retired Judge Elizabeth Scherer. She's now in private practice, and she was a judge in the 17th Judicial Circuit Court of Florida, which handles Broward County cases. And we really wanted to hear from her because she has such a unique perspective on these types of cases, and was just curious how she believes all of this could play out.
To hold a 14-year-old in secure detention is very, very difficult under the law. Even when juveniles commit, first-degree felonies, robbery, kidnapping, stabbings, all different kinds of things, they have this sort of point system to determine how long they can be held. And she's being held in secure detention for the longest time possible, or even indefinitely. And I believe that is to give because number one, I believe based on the facts that law enforcement and the prosecution must believe it's warranted. Again, the details that we don't have, but I would say in all likelihood that this child will be filed as an adult. She'll be direct filed, and she will then transfer from Judge Williams, who's a juvenile judge, to circuit court, where she will be in front of a felony judge, which is the type of judge that I was before I retired.
And talk to us about
She will be treated essentially just like the adults.
Yeah, talk to us about what that difference is, why it's important to have that distinction between adult court versus juvenile court.
Juvenile court focuses a lot more on rehabilitation. They try to get the children and the families together. They try to get them get them the support that they need. If the child is not going to school, they have social workers that try to get the child back in school. If the mother or the father needs resources, they try to get them, help them with housing. Whatever the difficulties are, they try to help the family and the child. And there's a lot of probation for even very serious crimes. They try to make sure that the child will not end up in adult court. In adult court, it's you need to sit down, you need to be quiet, you need to wait your turn. Nobody interrupts each other, and when I get to you, I will get to you. But until then, you need to sit down and you need to behave. And many times that's a shock for juveniles, because it's no longer a therapeutic court. Now we're in felony, and for the most part, when you're charged with a very violent crime like murder, the state's goal is punishment and keeping the community safe. It's no longer focusing on rehabilitation. I mean, I would say in all likelihood, she will be charged as an adult. Now, even once a child is charged as an adult, they can still receive juvenile sanctions, which is a little bit circular. But there are times where there are, circumstances where the defense and the state will work together when there's a big issue with the child. Maybe the child has mental illness, maybe the child suffers from PTSD. In those types of cases, I would say the child will still be filed as an adult, but there would be a likelihood that the state and the defense would work together to present all the mitigation that there is, so that the child can receive a sentence that's perhaps less than what someone accused of first-degree murder would normally receive.
And piggybacking on that, could her experiences, trauma that she allegedly endured, could that be used in terms of a mental health defense in any way?
I don't think it can be. It can't. A mental health defense is insanity, and that requires very, very specific things to have occurred. It means you have to have suffered some type of brief psychotic episode. It's very hard to meet the criteria of insanity, which is why you don't hear about it very often. So a generalized mental illness or PTSD or things like that are not generally a defense to a violent crime like murder. Now, certainly, if she's not competent to proceed, those things would apply, but that doesn't go to the trial and the elements of whether or not she's guilty.
Okay, so great to hear from Judge Scherer. For now, Koval remains in a South Florida juvenile detention center. Her next hearing is scheduled for June 12th, where it could be decided whether she is going to face charges as an adult. That's all we have for you here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.